No. There we go. Yes, we're live.
Oh, we're live.
Look at us. Look at us. We're like professionals here. All right.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Drawn by Success Friday Hangouts with Carlos and Bob. Bob, how you doing, buddy?
I've
You
been
had
good.
some shades on. What happened to the shades? I like the
Oh
shades.
yeah, no, they're right here. They're right here. They
You're
just
like,
happen to be
you're
on
like
my
that cool
desk.
guy with the shades.
Yeah,
when
I'm
he goes
gonna go
into
with the. I'm trying to go with the rock star look. I'm going for a new image. Yeah.
I like that. I like that.
So.
Hey, we got a special guest on today, don't we?
We
Bob?
do. Yeah, we got to quit clowning around and get to business here.
Well, you know what? Since you're the one that actually took a class with her and been raving about her and actually met her and introduced her to me, why don't you go ahead and do the introduction?
I met her in person over at Wake Tech, where I took her class, the WordPress class. It was probably one of the better moves I've made in a long time. My site was okay, but things were starting to fall apart a little bit, and so I decided to go and do a little bit of learning, and that's where I met Kelly. She was a great instructor, and I learned so much in that class. She started to talk a little bit about some of the stuff that she does outside of her class, and I thought, oh, wow, this would be a perfect fit. We got to get her in here for an interview. So I talked to her after class one day and said, hey, let's do an interview. And she was like, cool, let's do it. So here we are. This is Kelly Phillips from WordPressPluginCoach.com. And you can maybe, Kelly, you can talk a little bit about some of the other places people can find it, because I know there's a lot of them. And I've only mentioned one. So anyways, welcome, Kelly.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
All right, then. Well,
all right. The interview's over. All right. Thank you for joining us, Kelly. Thanks, everyone, for joining us.
Excellent.
So Kelly, let's get a little backstory here. How did you and Bob meet? Just
so yes, I do teach WordPress at Wake Tech. I have an Essentials and Advanced class, and Bob also teaches at Wake Tech and decided to take one of my classes. And so we met that way. And one of the things I like to do in those classes, I kind of just can't help myself. I get really passionate about WordPress and about entrepreneurship and helping people succeed. And so my classes aren't just about WordPress so much. They're about, okay, you're building a site, and that's great, but then how do you really make it work for you? Like, what are the business things you can do, the marketing things you can do? So I try really hard to incorporate the practical usage, I guess, of things into classes, along with, you know, here's the button you press to make your sidebar look better, that kind of stuff. So that's where Bob was referencing. I kind of get into a lot of other stuff, too. I have been a corporate trainer for 20 years, which just kind of blows my mind. It's a very long time to do one thing, but training and teaching is just, it's what lights me up. So Boost Interactive Media is my main company, and I kind of use it as an umbrella to do a lot of different things I'm passionate about. And WPPluginCoach.com is my WordPress, my private WordPress service. I teach classes here in Raleigh, and I'm working on some online courses that folks can take all over the world. And I do plugin reviews. So if you're looking for a good plugin, head over to WPPluginCoach.com and check out some of my reviews. So and that's kind of in a nutshell where you can find me and what I'm doing these days.
So for everyone that knows Bob, you see, even Bob, the expert, goes to other experts to learn new things. That's comforting to know, Bob.
Well, you know, that's what I try to put out on the teaching side is you're never done learning, you know, and so one of the nice things about that is you start to make connections outside of what you're doing too, and I thought, you know, getting in touch with Kelly was a great thing, and we've been talking a little bit about, you know, the WordPress site and all that kind of stuff, and after we're done, I'm sure, Carlos, you're probably going to want to talk to her about Drawn by Success.
We've got a few issues going on.
But yeah, but so we started to get into some things, and I noticed some really interesting stuff about what she was doing, and I wanted to have her come on and talk a little bit about that. So we've kind of got the backstory. Can you talk a little bit about you know, what you're doing and how you got to where you got? So you originally we started to look at you know, where you came from. You had this corporate job, and you decided that it was time to leave that job. Can you talk a little bit about how you went from that into working for yourself and starting your own business?
Yeah, absolutely, because I think now is a really good time to do that. You know, if there's anybody out there watching who's thinking of making that switch, or you're working a side gig but you really wish you could just run your business, now is the time to go. And what happened to me is in 2010, I was in a very stressful situation. And I loved corporate. I loved my job. I loved doing what I'm doing. I was successful at it. I was making really good money. But I landed in a very stressful situation where I had more job responsibilities put on me with less support and not any more pay. I had some kind of political situations with coworkers who like to play that backstabbing game, and unfortunately, you know, you run into that in corporate. And I try to not do that. I kind of feel like you know, you just be honest, and if the entire team succeeds, everybody succeeds. And I like helping other people succeed, but so being in a situation like that was incredibly stressful, and I literally had a stress heart attack.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I was 35, only 35 years old. Had 10-month-old baby, and
oh boy.
Just one Saturday I started feeling really tired, and my heart started pounding in these weird kind of ways, and I about collapsed on my living room floor, and my husband took me to the emergency room. And I still remember the doctor walking into that emergency room. I'm laying in the bed, I've got like, you know, sensors all over me, and he's waving this paper, and he says, this says you're having a heart attack. Like, nobody could believe it because I was 35 years old, you know, I was young, like, I'm just not the ideal candidate for a heart attack. So what we found out then down the road, long story short, is that there is this thing called Takotsubo syndrome, and it's Takotsubo. If you Google heartbreak syndrome, you can read more about it. But when you are under a constant stress or a huge influx of stress, if adrenaline builds up in your system, it can bind to the wall of your heart and shut your heart down. So when they say stress can kill you, like, they're not kidding, you guys.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah.
Now, let me ask you something, Kelly. Did you feel like you were in a stressful situation while you were at that job prior to the heart attack? Or, I mean...
Yeah. I knew I was. And the funny thing, Carlos, is that I've always felt like I performed better under stress. I've said that I don't know how many times in my life. Like, oh, the adrenaline and the stress, and I perform at a higher level. I used to say that all the time.
I think you're singing a tune that a lot of people are probably singing.
Yeah, and you know, it probably was true. I probably did perform better under stress because I had no choice. Like, it got me to focus. It you know, it brought everything down, and I got stuff done. But I didn't understand the toll that was taking on my body.
Now I wonder how much stress we all realize we're under, or don't realize we're under. Because I mean, we're, you know, as freelancers and independent business owners, you know, with my work, I'm constantly under deadlines. Deadlines is what dictates my pace. If I don't have a deadline, I slow down. If I have deadlines, I get like a boatload of stuff done. So when I have those deadlines, I know I'm under stress. But because I'm under deadlines all the time, the stress level, I don't feel like there's like a large amount of stress on me because I'm in that mode the majority of the time. And I wonder how many people that are listening right now are under that stressful situation like 80-90% of the time and just don't realize it because it's an everyday kind of thing. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, Carlos, I mean, you know, part of that is staying up till 4 in the morning and then getting up at 7 in the morning.
Thank you for bringing that up. Yeah, I pulled an all-nighter last night. You know, I haven't done one of those in a while. Actually, I did one of those like 3 weeks ago, but I usually don't do one of those. But I got to bed at 4 o'clock in the morning and was up back at 7, finishing up my work and uploading it to the syndicate and getting on this call right now with you guys. So I mean, you know, that's stressful. I mean, last night I felt like really, really tired and wound down, and I felt that stress building up. But you know, for me, it's kind of, you know, it's the way I work.
Well, that's, you know, and I was just thinking, you know, like what Kelly was saying really kind of identified with me when you started to talk about I thrive under stress. I was like, oh no, I was thinking the same exact thing. I'm like, yeah, let's do it, you know, bring it on. But so now you're sick and you understand that something's wrong and you have to make some changes. What did you do?
Well, first of all, it took several months to recuperate. I had to be out of work and had to have a lot of help taking care of my son and all of that. And during that time, there was a lot of time to reflect. I went from being, six-figure corporate salary, full speed ahead, to lying in bed for a little while. And it was different. I think that this is different because my heart actually ballooned, and so I had a period where my heart was kind of reshaping and coming back down, and so I couldn't do a lot of physical activity, which is a little different from a normal heart attack. But what I realized is that I had a 10-month-old son, a husband I love very much. I had a wonderful life, and I wasn't really living it. I was working so much, and when I wasn't working, I was thinking about work and trying to manage the stress level and the politics and worrying about what to do. And I decided it was time to change. And things are a little different. It's only a few years later, but entrepreneurship has just boomed in the last few years. I mean, it is so easy to start a business right now. It's unbelievable. And so it took me a little bit. Back in 2010, I tried a couple of different business ideas. I was playing around, and I honestly couldn't even see, like, how am I going to replace my salary? Because I had to replace my salary. So it did take me a few years to work into finding my niche, finding the thing that was going to work for me, and then figuring out how to make it profitable. And it has been just an amazing ride. The last 3 years have been so much fun. And there's a difference, like Carlos, with the stress you were talking about. Like, there's a difference between good stress and bad stress. Bad stress is a stress where you feel like you're out of control. You're not quite sure how you're going to get things done. There's bad stress. Like, good stress for me, and the stress that I thrive on now, is more of the exhilarating, this is a really cool project, it's a challenge to me, but I'm up for it. It's the positive stress versus the negative that I had been dealing with.
That's a good distinction. Thank you for making that. Yeah, because I mean, if I had to work a 9 to 5 and I had to ask permission for days off or to get off early to go to one of my kids' games or something, that to me would be major stressful. Or even having to drive into traffic, to work every day, which I don't have to do because I work at my house. So yeah, it's a different kind of stress, and you're right. I'd probably be dead if I worked the 9 to 5.
I think a lot of people probably identify with that, Carlos. I know I do. When I had a full-time job, I used to look out in the parking lot of my car and think, I could just get in that and drive away. I could just go now. I could go now.
and that's what helps you build what I call the big why. I mean, to kind of get into the things that other people can do. Like, when you're going to make this kind of leap, you have to have a lot of reasons. But I like to say, if you can define your big why, the specific benefits you're going to get from taking this leap and doing the work, it really helps you get through the harder times of building a business. So, like, my big why was, okay, number one, I didn't want to die. That's the pretty big why.
That's a good motivator.
Yeah. And number two, I have a son, and when my big goal was that when he started kindergarten, I wanted to be home, be able to work from home, so that he did not have to go to before school care and after school care. So that was one of my big whys. And there's a lot of other I won't go into, like, being able to work from the beach is kind of nice. But
it is nice, yeah.
So during that time, I really defined the big why, and that has helped me along the way, because entrepreneurship is discouraging. It's stressful. It's hard, but it's also all the good things that are the opposites of those. But during those hard times, I feel like if you actually write down your big why, and you can pull it out and read it when you're discouraged, it's a motivating thing. It kind of resets your brain to focus again on why you're doing this and what the benefits are going to be. So that's one big thing I always tell folks to do.
Yeah, and I think also, I mean, I like that you mentioned that you started a couple of businesses, or you went down several different roads prior to finding your niche right now. And because I think a lot of people seem to think that you make a choice, you're going to go down this road, and if it doesn't work out, you're a failure. Oh, no. And it's just a discovery process. So, how many different things did you go down, and did you establish your why before you went down those things that didn't work, or did your why arrive after going through a few of those dead-end roads?
My why was established before. I used that as sort of the decision maker that, yes, I'm going to do this, and I got my husband's buy-in on it, because I'm not going to say you have to have your family's buy-in, but I will say it's a lot easier if you do, because support is essential. But so my why was established, but my why has also evolved and developed. You know, as things go, I've seen bigger possibilities than I saw then. You know, I tried, I would say 3 or 4 different things. And the funniest part of that is while I was in corporate, so like for a year and a half while I still was in corporate, I was building this business. Like I had contractors working for me. I had an assistant in my own business, but I was still going to an office every day and getting a paycheck. So it was very odd, dual life for a while. But I was building during the year and a half a web design business, and it wasn't until I actually left corporate and started doing this full time that I realized that wasn't really the right direction. That was the easier direction. It was the direction clients were flocking to me. But teaching is really what I love. It's really what lights me up. And so even now, as a successful business, I'm pivoting. So there's no failure in changing direction. There's just another path you choose.
So let me ask you a question. What's your why? Define for people that are listening, because we want to make this segment instructional for them. So
Yes.
give us an example of your why, maybe what it was then and how it's changed.
So the things that haven't changed about my why is, like I said, my son starts kindergarten on Thursday, and I'm here for him. He does not have to go to before and after school care. I can volunteer in his class. So that's the why that has not changed. I loved what you said about like how you wouldn't like asking for time off, you know, and that's a big why that developed. As I was in corporate and I started getting a taste of the freedom, every time I had to ask for vacation time, I felt like I was asking permission to live my life. Like that's just wrong on so many levels. You know, you shouldn't have to ask permission to live your own life. Why is work more important than you and your family? So that turned into part of my big why. And then also something that's developing now is just being able to invest in me. So when I was working corporate and working my business, I had to give up all of my hobbies, like everything. I used to garden. I love rose gardening. I sewed. I actually have a minor in opera performance.
Wow.
I spent 2 years studying opera performance in college before I switched my major. But I want to go audition for a show. I haven't done a show in years, and so I'm not at the point yet because I'm still really building my business. But I'm hoping that by mid next year, I'm gonna have more free time in my life to go do the things I love. So I mean, I would say those are my 3 biggest whys, and then of course there's providing for my family. That's I've always been the independent sort. When I was 16 years old, I will never forget this. My dad was showing me how to change a tire in our garage, and he stopped and put the tire thing down, and he looked at me and said, "Go to college, get a good job, and don't ever be dependent on a man for anything." And like those words, I think, have really shaped my drive and ambition to be able to take care of myself and my family. So that's important to me as well.
Excellent.
Yeah, that's great.
So what kind of advice would you have for people making the transition that you had made? Well, you had left your corporate job altogether and then started. It's like you weren't doing one both at the same time.
No, I was doing both at the same time.
You were.
Yeah,
Right,
for
so
about a year and a half.
What advice would you have for someone? Because we have a lot of people that watch us and read the blogs that are in full-time jobs or part-time jobs while they're trying to transition into full-time freelancing, you know, design, illustrator, whatever it happens to be for them, and they're just not ready to make that leap 100%. We had talked the other day about a couple of things that you had mentioned as a part-time gig as being part of your funnel to get you to where you want to be. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. If you have flexibility in the full-time or part-time job that you are going to work, because there is no shame, you guys, in working a part-time gig while you're building your business. I mean, it's actually very smart. So a lot of people say, I feel like a fraud because I have this other paycheck. No. That's not, don't feel that way. But you can utilize that part-time job as part of your sales funnel. So, for example, I was talking to someone the other day who is a sleep coach, and she helps parents get their kids on a sleep schedule and get babies to sleep. and she was looking for a part-time gig, and she thought about doing like virtual assisting work. And I said to her, look, your dream client congregates in certain places. Think about where that dream client is. Get a part-time job where they are. So, for example, she could go down to a maternity store, and she could be talking to moms while she's selling them maternity clothes, or to a baby store. And that, even if she can't actively, sell her services there, because obviously she's working for the store, it gets her in front of her ideal client. She can talk to them, get in their heads, learn what they're concerned about. They get to know her name so that when they see her in her business, they already have built some trust with her. I mean, you're going to have to go get a part-time job with a paycheck anyway. Utilize that. Use it to build your business.
Right. That's a good point. So basically you're tapping into, you're not going into an area that's completely different from what you're looking to transition into, but something that's very closely associated so that you can use it as part of transitioning into where you want to go.
Right. And we probably have a lot of listeners who are already there. They're sort of straddling that line between, a full-time design job and thinking, hey, I'd love to be an illustrator. I'd like to talk a little bit about that push to get from hey, I want to be to hey, I am. How do you get from one side of that river to the other side? That's I think the part where a lot of people sort of get stuck.
Yeah, and it's a scary transition, and it's also a dichotomy in a way in your mindset, because the way you think as an employee is very, very different from the way you need to think as an entrepreneur. And it can be a struggle to turn that on and off when you're playing different roles in one day. I know it was for me. So I think, some of the tips that I have is number one, get a really good grasp on your financials. Like, that really is the first thing you should do. Financials are scary. I know. I've been in seriously big debt in the past. And sitting down to really map out what that debt was and what it was going to take for me to pay it off was horrible. It was awful, awful. And, but you have to do it, because if you're going to run your own business, the only way to true success is to know the money. You have to know where it's coming from, you have to know where it's going, and you have to know how it's going to get there. So figuring out your personal finances, step one. And then figuring out how much it will cost you to run your business is step two. Once you have those two numbers, there's the total amount that you're going to need to sell or bring in. And then you have to figure out what kind of products or services you're going to offer to bring in that amount of money. I mean, it's a fairly simple formula to talk through, but it's not so easy to figure out because there's a lot of emotion around it.
Oh, no doubt, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's where a part-time, if you're in a part-time situation or you have a full-time job somewhere else in a 9-to-5, that's where you can start looking at that 9-to-5 as something that'll get you to where you want to be versus something that's keeping you from where you want to be. Because that financial piece, if you're getting a good slice of cash from that 9-to-5 or that part-time, that's actually helping you establish yourself so that you can do what you want to do down the road. So you have to kind of change your mind shift a little bit around that as well.
Oh yeah, that's funding, baby.
Yeah, that's funding.
They don't know it, but they're funding your business.
Exactly.
That's a good way to put it. I like that. So you kind of reframe things a little bit. Look at it a little bit differently. It's not it's not what's holding you back. It's what's getting you ready. So.
Yeah, and in my most frustrating moments now, and I was lucky. I had a great boss. He was amazing to work for. He knew that I was building a business, and we were in a situation. We were in like a merger situation where I knew I was probably going to get laid off, and so he was supportive and understanding, provided that I did my job and did it well. It would be harder, I think, if you were in a position where you had a boss that you couldn't tell what you were doing and you had to keep it a secret. I think it would be a lot more difficult. But in the hardest days, I still did have hard days, and I would think of them as a client. I would say, okay, this is a difficult client. If I were the business owner and they were the client, how would I handle it? I would certainly handle it with more grace and aplomb than I wanted to as the employee. And so that kind of helped me get through the rougher times.
That's good. Yeah, that's a good way to look at it. Yeah. Excuse me. So Had you written up a business plan and everything before you started when you were getting ready to get into your new business? Or did you just kind of dive in? I know I dove in when I was first started out. I lost a job, and then it was like, okay, you're in free fall. What do you do now? So, and I don't recommend that doing it that way for anybody because it was really scary. I was just for a couple of weeks I was just like, well, here I am, and I had no idea. I just kind of stumbled into it. But I'm assuming that you had a little something more going on and were a little bit more organized than I was.
Don't assume too much. I was probably a little more organized than that, but I have never written an official business plan. And I mean, I think that there's a time and a place for an official business plan, but they're kind of cumbersome. And when you're a small business, a single entrepreneur just starting out, I mean, you've got to move fast. You've got to be flexible, and you don't have time to be writing and rewriting paragraphs in your business plan because you're doing,
Oh, no doubt.
So yeah. I do have, right? I do have spreadsheets. I have a budget spreadsheet. I have some financial predictions. I got a great accountant, and this is another one of the tips, is don't be afraid to outsource. You're going to feel like you don't have the money to outsource, but it really is going to save you. So one of the first things I did was get an accountant to do my taxes. And I'm on my second accountant now, and she actually is so good. She forecasts for me, what I think my income's going to be for the year, what my employment taxes will be, because you've got to pay an extra 7% when you're working for yourself, because that's what your employer was paying. So having that accountant has really given me peace of mind that I'm not going to get stuck with this huge tax bill at the end of the year that I didn't expect, which is a very common thing for new entrepreneurs.
Right. Yeah, been there, done that.
Yeah, so, I mean, she charges what I would consider a minimal amount of money for that kind of peace of mind.
I'm going to have to get that number from you after the show.
Oh, she's great. I'll give her number out to everybody. Yeah, definitely. We'll post it on the event page, actually. If you guys want, she won't mind, I don't think.
That'd be great, yeah. Okay.
What else do you look at when you're thinking of outsourcing? What other areas of your business do you outsource? Because I know that I've talked about outsourcing with people before, and a lot of times people just don't know what to outsource. They feel, because we're independent creators, we're used to, and we feel like we have to do everything ourselves. And just talking from personal experience, I've been down the road many times where I've said, well, if I gotta write something up and tell this person to do it, and by the time I get done, I might as well just do it myself.
Yeah.
What other areas do you outsource?
Yeah, and I think, Carlos, that is key, because it's not even so much that it's easier to do it ourselves, but we feel like we can do it better than them, and that's really the stopper. Like, we don't want to give it to someone who's not going to do as good of a job as us, and we're paying them. But you can't do everything, and that was where I was. I actually hired my first virtual assistant before I left my corporate job because I needed to move faster than I was able to move with the time I had, and I felt like I didn't have the money to pay her, but I felt like if I didn't hire her, I would never have the money to pay her.
So that's scary. So you're thinking like, oh my gosh, now I'm responsible for somebody else. What do I do?
Yes. So I actually found a person who her job was helping you find a VA. So I paid her a little money, and she walked me through the process and helped me figure out what to outsource. So basically I looked at, there are things that only I can do, right? And then there are things like some research and things like that someone else could do. So for me, that list, it's either you're not willing to give it up or you think you could give it up. So for me, having someone edit my blog posts was a big one, but I wanted to go actually build the graphics that were going to go with the blog post. So that's kind of where I am with that. I do a lot of research around WordPress plugins and solutions, and I needed somebody to help me with that. I wanted someone to sort of, this sounds bad maybe, but run interference with clients a little bit. Like the client onboarding process was long for me, because when you're building their website, you need to build some trust with them. There's a lot of discovery that happens, and so my assistant helps me walk those clients through the onboarding process, and she manages my schedule for me, which took a little getting used to, but now works out really well. So I think it's a matter of you sitting down and saying, what are the things I really could have them do? Start small. I started 3 to 5 hours a week, and now it's grown, and it's not even a set amount anymore. It's really just how much do I need her, and she's in a position where she's got the flexibility to do that as well. And she's really grown beyond a virtual assistant. Her title is Business Operations Coordinator, because she really is integral to the operations of everything I do.
Yeah,
I guess a lot of it too. I guess a lot of it too is knowing what your time is worth. There are just certain situations, certain tasks that you may be doing over and over again on a weekly basis that just really aren't worth your time. Where your time would be better spent marketing or seeking out new clients. So those are the things that really going to put the biggest amount of money in your pocket and create the biggest change in your business, where you get stuck doing a lot of these menial tasks that you can get someone you can pay a whole lot less than what you're paying yourself to do.
Yeah.
One of the things that I've noticed also about outsourcing is that you're now able to offer a much bigger package than you could when you weren't outsourcing, because this person has capabilities that you probably don't have, and probably excels in areas where you don't excel. And so now that you've got this person helping you out, you can actually offer a lot more to your clients. And I think a client would really appreciate that. I know in my case, whenever I outsource, I'm able to expand the amount of work that I can do. So I can take on larger projects and maybe something that I normally wouldn't take on. And I think that sometimes we forget that when we're so focused on control.
That's a great point. The more and really when you're making those decisions about what they do, you need to think about it that way. What can they do that allows me to earn more revenue?
Mm-hmm.
And social media is another really big thing that you should outsource. And again, it's hard because that is your presence. Before you can outsource, it is. And before you can outsource social media, you need to be able to clearly write out on paper what your professional image needs to be online. Like, you need to be really crystal clear about what that image is so that you can give very good direction to the person who's handling your social media. I'm also going to tell you a big mistake people make when they outsource the social media is they choose somebody to do it who is not a social media professional. I made that mistake, and it wasn't that big of a mistake. The person I had doing it originally did a good job. I mean, I have no complaints with what she did, and she did exactly what I told her to do. But at one point, I decided to hire a social media professional to do it, and instant traction, instant difference in everything. And sometimes she'll literally write a post or something, and I'll read it, and I'll be like, wait, did I write that? Or did she write that?
You're inside my head, man.
I'll write stuff and give it to her to post, and I'm like, I really sometimes can't tell what she wrote and what I wrote.
All right. So what's the biggest distinction? Is it that they get to know you well enough that they can speak in your voice, where they know your mission, and they basically they have a better connection with what you would be saying?
Yeah, it's that the person that I have, she knows my voice so well that she can mimic it. She knows what I would say, and if there's something she wants to put out and she's not 100% sure how I would phrase it, she will ask me. She will say, "Hey, here's what I want to say. Could you make sure that this is how you would do it?"
How can we be sure that you're really Kelly Phillips and not your
No, I took her class, man. It's her.
Oh, okay, so
yeah, it's
we don't want to lax on our screening capabilities here.
Anything that looks spontaneous probably is me, because I do post on all of my channels myself, and I'm trying to get better at actually taking little snapshots of things I'm doing and putting it out there. So if it looks spontaneous, it probably is me, but I'm not going to promise anything. She's really good, and she has other clients, and the things she does for other clients are totally different. I mean, it's amazing to me.
And so how important is social media to your business? I mean, is that a big part of what you're doing?
Yes, it really is. For me, networking has actually been a more important part of my marketing plan, and we can talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I'd love to.
But networking has grown my business to a certain point, right? But then if I want to reach beyond beyond that, beyond this kind of circle of people that are all connected to each other, social media is the key for that. And so it may not be the most important thing for those of you who are at the beginning, but you will hit a point where in order to get over the hump, you've got to get control of the social media.
Mm-hmm. What's your favorite? Which social platform is your favorite?
Oh, gosh. It's a love-hate relationship with them all, to be honest. I honestly think I identify with Twitter more personally, I think. The corporate trainers are big on Twitter. Like, we have tweet chats, and we actually have conversations over Twitter. Facebook would be if they wouldn't keep changing things and making it more difficult.
Yeah, that's a tough one. That's a tough nut to crack now. It's getting they're so clamped down. It's hard to reach people through Facebook. So you have a really, really great networking story about the Red Feather, and I hope you'll tell that.
Absolutely. So I went to a corporate training conference in 2011, and it was huge. This is the largest professional conference in the industry, and there's usually 8,000 to 10,000 people there. And so they created this mentoring group on LinkedIn. I was like, oh gosh, what am I getting into? They have to have a mentoring group for the conference? That's crazy. So a lot of people joined this mentoring group, but there were way more mentees than mentors. And so true to form, I jump in and start answering questions. I've never been to this conference, right? But I'm like, I do my research and I start answering questions. And a couple other people did the same thing. And before you know it, there's like 50 of us from all over the world who started talking and getting to know each other, all first-time attendees. We started texting, a couple people were on the phone. And when we got to the conference in Orlando, it was hard to find each other. So somebody had brought a bag of red feathers, and we stuck them in our badge. So that when you see a red feather, hey, you can just walk up to that person, even if you don't know who they are, and you know that they have some sort of connection to that group. Well, the story started spreading because people wanted to know why we were wearing red feathers, and it just kind of went viral through the conference. We had, I remember, I think it was even the first day, one of the sessions that I was in, the presenter saw the red feathers and asked about it, and then talked about it in a session. So then everybody, the girl who had the bag, got like mobbed. And it was amazing. It was the best experience of my life. And I think the thing is with networking, and I have an extroverted communication style, but inside I'm an introvert. I would rather curl up with a good book and a cup of hot chocolate every day than go to a party. But what I learned is that it's the fear of rejection that stops us from networking. That it's actually a really cool thing to just get to know people. There are so many cool people in this world, and for most of my life, I've been walking right past them with my eyes on my phone or my eyes down because I was afraid to say hello. And that experience made me realize that if you can just get past that and be open, your world blooms. And that's why my business was so successful right out of the gate. When I started doing web design in, I guess it was 2012, still doing my corporate job, clients were coming to me faster than I could handle them. I ended up having to hire 2 contractors to help me because I couldn't keep up with the volume of web design clients. And I didn't do any advertising. It was all networking and word of mouth. So the real turning point there, the last day of that conference, I was on the expo floor where all the vendors are. And I had all this confidence because I just had this great new networking experience, and I walk up and there's this girl standing there who her badge said she was from Raleigh. And I was like, oh, I'm going to try this with somebody who wasn't part of the original group. I can do this. And I started talking to her, and her badge, instead of her company name, it had her professional certification. I was like, oh, you're from this company? And she looked at me and rolled her eyes and said, it's just the certification for our industry. And she walked away. And oh gosh, it was.
You can't have a feather.
I went from I was like this big to like this big, and the vendor was just, his jaw literally dropped. Like, I don't even know what to say to that. And so I went over to the corner, and I teared up. I gotta admit, and I said, all right, listen.
I felt like that last night.
Yeah, this is why networking is so hard.
Yeah.
Like, why do you have to be rude to somebody who just says hello to you? So I said, look, I got a choice. All right, I can let that stop me, and I can close back off, and I can go back to this group of people that I met, and I can just stay with that group, and I'm done. Or I can go back out on that expo floor, I can find someone to say hello to, and I can just redeem the whole experience. And that's what I did. I went out on that floor, and it was funny because I said hello to this guy, and his name ended up being Kelly, which was like instant bonding, right? And I still am connected to him, 3 years later. So that to me tells the story of networking, why it's so hard and why it's worth it, that when you do get that crushing feeling, to just go back out there. And now when that happens to me, because it still happens, I'm like, okay, whatever. I think this person next to you looks pretty cool, so let me go talk to them,
Yeah.
Because I've had so many good experiences. The bad ones now have very little importance and significance to me.
Well, that's just like when you go out and you have like a comment come in on your website. You have hundreds that say you're the greatest thing ever, and then you focus on that one that just that one lousy comment on YouTube that tells you whatever, and you're just like, oh, look at that person, they're ruining everything, and then instead, yeah, it's the focus. So you shift the focus back onto the people that you want to be around and the people that are going to help build you up, as opposed to that one person who's going to tear you down.
Yeah,
we were talking yesterday about the networking thing, that where the problem that people have with networking is that they feel like it's a sales pitch. They don't want to sell what they have. They don't want to listen to somebody else's sales pitch. And it's really not about that at all. It's about just making connections with people and genuinely being interested in what someone else is doing.
Yeah, and it's funny because when I did go out, so it was like, 3 years that I was building up this network before I even really went out on my own. And when I did go out on my own, I didn't, send a blast to my network saying, oh, everybody send business my way. I didn't do anything like that. That to me would have felt wrong and slimy and inauthentic. But what I did do is I just said, hey, just launched my new website, go check it out. And I let people know what services I was offering, just by putting it out there and interacting. And they referred people. I didn't have to ask. And the biggest corporate client that I have right now came from a former boss who I had kept in touch with, and he knew what was going on. And when I left the other job, he called me up and said, hey, I'm looking for a vendor to do this. You want in? And I was like, yeah. I didn't solicit him. He came to me because I was authentic in the way that I approached everything.
Excellent.
It's a good approach to be more conversational about things. I think a lot of times we get stuck on the, hey, check out my stuff, check out me, look over here, here's my business card, and instead you want to develop some sort of personal relationship and actually talk to somebody. Just say, hey, how's your day going, that kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Kelly, to get onto the next step that we were talking about, identifying with today, you'd mentioned like some of the things that didn't work out in your networking, meeting someone that was kind of rude or whatever. How do you deal with failure? Your perspective on failure within your business, and how do you deal with that?
Yeah, failure was a tough one because I am an overachiever, and overachievers don't accept failure well at all. So that was a big struggle. And what I finally realized is that I had to reframe failure. That when you're in business for yourself, if you try something and it doesn't work, it's not a failure. It just shows you what not to waste your time on, and it usually points you to the next thing you should try. So I don't see failure as a step backward or as something to be ashamed of. I see it as something that shows you the right path, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I love what you said there about how it points you in a new direction. And so even if something does fail, you're going to learn something that you're probably going to apply later on.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just as important to know what doesn't work as it is to learn what does work.
Yeah, because then you can stop wasting your time.
Off the table, and then you're pretty much left with all the pieces that are going to get you to where you want to go.
Yeah, and so if you out there are thinking of launching a new product or selling in a different way, and you're like, oh, what if this doesn't work? What am I going to do? well, you're just going to waste your time thinking about it until you try it and see if it works or not. So, just do it.
Yeah, that's that sort of deer in the headlights thing. There's a lot of fear that, oh, should I try this or should I not try it? And then suddenly you find something else to keep yourself busy. Like, oh, now I think I'm working hard, so I must be doing something. I think sometimes you really just got to face it head on.
Yeah.
And really, what's the worst? I think you have to think what's the worst that can happen if this doesn't work. You know what I mean? It's hardly ever anything life-threatening or that's going to put you in serious jeopardy. And I think a lot of us we put so much on something that we're planning or doing that we're afraid that if it flops, then what? But the truth is that if it flops, so what? And then when you get to that point, I think other doors and other opportunities open up that you don't currently see. I mean, you got to go through that process, possibly fail, and then you see other things that become available.
And people aren't paying as much attention to you as you feel like they are. You think everything you do is under a microscope, but the truth is they're going about their lives, man. They, you have a big failure, they're going to be largely oblivious to that unless you point it out to them. So, just keep moving. Just keep moving forward.
Well, that's certainly my experience here at home. I always think people are paying attention.
I was just going to say the same thing, Carlos.
Oblivious, are we?
People don't even know I'm here.
Carlos, we know you're there, and that's all that counts.
Well, that's the only reason why I have this show is because I'm recognized by Bob. Bob, once a week, recognizes me, and really that's all I need.
And I get the same thing back, Carlos, so there we go. It's sort of a symbiotic relationship we got going here. I feel very validated every Friday. All right, so talk a little bit about the evolutionary process. So I know, so as we're talking about that, trying new things, what directions have you gone in that you've found were worth pursuing, and what directions are you thinking about trying? Can you talk a little bit about some of that? Because I know that in my business, what I do now is very different from what I did when I first started out, and I know businesses tend to evolve like that.
Yeah, I think the right way to evolve a business is to follow what makes you feel good about yourself. You do have to get strategic about marketing, you have to get strategic about finances, but in the end, if you are focusing on what lights you up and what serves your client, and by client, I don't mean necessarily the people who are willing to pay you, but I mean the people who you really want to work with. If you can line up those two things, the thing that lights you up and the thing that your dream client really wants you to do for them, your business will evolve on its own in the right direction. It won't feel forced. And I've found, and I've been entrepreneurial my whole life. Like even in college, I had like a desktop publishing business. I've always tried different things and just never really found the thing that stuck until now. But I've learned that when you do hit that right thing, that combination right there, that your business will almost grow in spite of you. Like it just takes on its own life and starts to build, and things become easier.
Yeah, that's a great point. So, yeah, and excuse me, I like what you said about the entrepreneurial spirit, because I think I really identify with that too. I mean, I remember even as a kid thinking, like, I'm going to have my own business. I'm going to go do this and do that. And I did all these things. I mean, I mowed lawns. I made T-shirts. I did, whatever I could think of to make money. And it was always like, this is the coolest thing ever. I can't wait to be a big guy and do it on my own, So.
There you go.
But yeah, it's interesting to see how things evolve as you go, and it's nice to, as like what you said, it starts to take on a life of its own, and so you can start to recognize that as it starts to take off and just sort of follow the path that it takes. There is a certain amount. I mean, obviously, there's a certain amount of control that you have to have over that, but if you can start to recognize that as it grows.
Well, and I think the hardest part of that is learning what to say no to. Because, like, I'm multi-passionate. I have a billion different ideas every day that I could follow. And for a while there, I got caught up in wanting to do everything. And so my word for the year is focus and action, where I'm learning to say no, and I'm learning to focus in on just the things that are the most precious to me in terms of my business and the activities that I do. And that has really helped me move forward and grow a lot too. I guess it's counterintuitive. You say no to things and your business grows, but it really does.
That's a huge point too. A lot of people get trapped into the I'm going to do everything, because if I cast a wider net, then I'm probably going to get more business. But what ends up happening is you spread yourself too thin. You become sort of that handyman as opposed to a specialist.
And you don't become known for it. When you have that focus, people know you as a problem provide a solution to a very specific set of problems. And I think you're easier to be found. And people, that's what really sets you apart when you start looking at other people that provide the same things, the same kind of things that you do. That focus that's where you start attracting people that are going to really be more inclined to hire you to solve their problems, whether it be design or illustration or whatever it is.
Yeah, and if there's anyone out there listening to us right now and you're saying, okay, that's great, but I'm afraid to niche. Like, I'm afraid that if I go too narrow, I'm going to be bored. Well, that's a fear that I had, and the way I handled it is I created Boost Interactive Media as my umbrella company, and that is going to be the company that I keep until I'm done working. And then I'm having smaller kind of service-oriented brands underneath that. So WP Plugin Coach is a brand of Boost Interactive Media. And, will I keep WP Plugin Coach forever? I don't know. I mean, I see keeping it around for a good 5 or 6 years, and then I may want to sell it, I may want to bring somebody else in to run that part so I can go on and do other things, because I do tend to get, I do something for a while, and then I'm ready to move on to something else. So, you build your business to suit you and your personality. I mean, this is your show. Build it the way that makes sense for you.
Yeah, I think too when you're looking at branching out and looking at 2 or 3 different things that you're doing, I think it's really important to realize that when you start doing something else that's completely different from what from business A or problem solving A to what it might be in B, is that if they're very different, you're looking at 2 completely different businesses, 2 different marketplaces, 2 different markets, 2 different sets of marketing material, 2 different solutions. So that's where it really becomes crazy, because you cannot run 2 businesses at once. So really, like, the defining thing for me was, like, take what you want to do, and then if you're going to offset and do something else, it's got to be something that's close enough related. I was in a conference a couple of years ago, and someone framed it this way: if you're like a jeweler, if you have like a jewelry store, you're not going to get necessarily into another business that's completely unrelated to that. What you want to try to do is, based on the clientele that you already have, start a business where you already have that set clientele. So in other words, if you're a jeweler, you sell a lot of wedding rings, for example, maybe what you can do is have a segment of your business that plans weddings, because you already have those clienteles. Now you're just offering a different service to the same kind of people that are already coming to you. You understand? So that, to me, made it really, really clear to me.
Yeah, and for me, it was about defining my personal brand. So my personal brand is, I'm a teacher around the areas of technology and entrepreneurship. Like, those are the 3 things that define me. And so every sub-brand that I have under my company is going to reflect one of those pieces of me. And then that's my personal brand. So it all flows into customers. It makes sense. So.
Right. So not one of your side businesses isn't owning a hardware store.
No.
Yeah, and that makes good sense, I think, because people have certain expectations, when they come to see you. This is why I'm coming here. This is what I'm expecting to see. And then, oh, hey, but here's a little offshoot that might be interesting as well, So that's a great point.
Kelly, we got a question from Julia Feldman.
Sure.
She asks, I'm an artist. Ideally, I'd like to have my gallery represent me. Do you have any ideas on reaching out to that area?
Yes.
Or something like that.
Yeah, so that's where the networking really comes in, Julia. And what you'll need to do is figure out who it is you're needing to talk to. And if you can get their specific name, that's great. Or it may just be that there's a place where those people go. So is there an association that all of the galleries in your area belong to? Do they all belong to the Chamber of Commerce, for example? Maybe you need to start going to those Chamber of Commerce events where those people are, and talk to them. And, sometimes we feel like we're cyber stalking when we do this, but for business purposes, I'm going to tell you it's okay to do. So let's say you find 4 galleries, and those are the galleries that you think would really suit your art and your personality. If you can find the right contact person, look them up on LinkedIn. Look at their picture so that when you go to those Chamber of Commerce events, you recognize them and you can walk up and introduce yourself and just say, hey, I've really admired your gallery. I feel like my work may fit. Don't start off with that hard sales pitch, though. Start off by just talking to them. Ask them questions about them. Find out who they are, because, again, it's that networking thing where you're not necessarily networking to get something from folks, but you're networking for the purpose that this is a really cool person, and I just want to get to know them. So it's sort of combining that, okay, I need to network with the right people, but still having the attitude of it's not what they can do for me, it's the fact that they're in this cool industry and I need to learn more about it, and it would be really cool to get to know them. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think like approaching it from the standpoint of you want to get to know what kind of people this gallery services, to see what you can offer them, to see how you become valuable to their clientele. It's always about the other person. It's never about you. Mm-hmm. And also, we had interviewed a while back an artist, Ali Loop. Remember, Bob?
Sure. Oh, absolutely.
And what she had done, she had cherry-picked a bunch of galleries in her area and spoke to them, got them on her email list, and started sending out a monthly newsletter to them about all these different things that she was involved in. And she created all sorts of interest. And it was never a sales pitch. It was just about learning about the gallery, their clientele, and just letting them know what she was up to. So she wasn't relying on them to make sales for her. She was actually just doing a lot of stuff on her own. And through the newsletter that would go out once a month, these people got all excited about what she was doing because they saw her doing all sorts of different things. And then they started inviting her into the gallery. So that's another different approach that you can take too. It's a little more proactive.
I love that tactic. That's great.
I'm definitely stealing that one.
Yeah. Well, and it's like when I talk to people about job interviews, and you go into a job interview, that manager's looking at you, and they ask you what you did in the past, but what they really want to know is, okay, what are you going to do for me when you get here? Like, I think job interviews are funny because it focuses on what we accomplished in the past, but that's not really what they care about.
Right.
So it's the same thing.
Well, even a lot of illustrators, when they approach designers or artists in general, they're always submitting work and wanting to see if they can get hired. So it's like, look at me, look what I'm doing. Do you have a job for me? That kind of a thing. And I think that turns people off.
Oh, no doubt.
It doesn't give people the opportunity to really get to know you and understand a little more about you, versus you going to them and say, look, who are the people that you're working with, and what do they need from you, and how can I help you, get them what they need, and help you, get your job done easier to give them what they need. I'm here for you.
Yeah.
There's a totally different take on it.
Well, it's an easy trap to fall into. You want to promote yourself and put your business forward or whatever, but I think you got to really focus on that more personal level of relationship when you're starting to talk to people. It's like those. It's like that. The other podcast I was talking to you about last week, Carlos, the I Love Marketing, where they talk about cheese and whiskers. If you guys haven't checked out I Love Marketing, it's a really great podcast to check out. But they have an episode called Cheese and Whiskers, and so what they're talking about is, when a mouse comes, is he attracted to cheese? Right. That's so when you put out cheese, you're putting out something that they like, something that they want to learn more about. And then when they detect whiskers, which is what's on a cat, then they kind of turn away, they shy away. So if you're pushing your sales pitch too hard at them, they're going to kind of back off from that. Nobody wants a sales pitch. There you go. And so there.
It's the truth, absolutely. So Julia submitted a follow-up. It looks like talking about networking with galleries outside of her area. That's where I would head to again, it's sort of the same concept, but online. So in person, you head to the events that those people are at. So online, you have to figure out where those people are going online to interact. So LinkedIn is one of the best professional places to interact. Are there groups on LinkedIn that art galleries join, the people who work at art galleries join? You really have to figure out where they are and meet them in their own space. And then I love what Carla said about, showing how you can help the people that they are, that are their clients. So, how do you get someone on your list? So I love the list idea, but how do you get them on your list? One thing is, don't ever put them on your list without their permission, because not only is it illegal, but it's just really bad etiquette and bad form. So following people, so let's say that there's a gallery in another city that you want to get their attention. You want to follow all of their social media accounts, okay? You want to retweet, you want to make comments on their website. And what you're trying to do here is you're trying to show that you're interested in what they do. You're becoming visible to them by interacting with them online in a very genuine way. So, again, don't do it just because. Do it because they tweeted something you liked and you retweeted it or you replied to it. But you have to build a relationship. It's kind of like ask them out for coffee and then maybe lunch, and then ask them on your list. And so that's how you build a relationship with someone who's not physically or geographically in your area, is you just find ways to genuinely engage with them online.
Yeah, whatever post, whatever gallery showings they have, if they're focusing on a specific artist or a specific type of work, you can comment on that. Bob and I have talked about this back in the old days. When Bob had hair, we had a
good-looking guy back then, Carla.
we used to go to ad agencies. We used to use this publication called Adweek, and
yeah,
we'd be able to see what advertising agencies. I mean, this isn't galleries, but it's kind of the same thing. We'd be able to see through that publication what agencies were picking up new clients, what corporate clients were picking up new agencies, what kind of campaigns they were working on. So reading through that industry news magazine, you'd be able to pick up the phone and call one of the art directors and say, "Hey, congratulations on this new account. And after you've done a little bit of research, I hear they do great work. Blah blah blah. I saw your account from last year. I can see where you guys." Made a good impression for this account. You guys fit right in. Congratulations. Stuff like that. It's not a sales pitch. It's just getting to know somebody, getting on their radar. Just being personable and getting on their radar goes a long, long way.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Well, I hope that answers Julia's question.
Mm-hmm. Where are you guys getting these questions? Do we have a chat open or something? What's going on here? You guys are like.
It's on the G Plus page.
I just sensed there was a question coming in. I'm like, wow, you guys are doing pretty good. That's all right. People send you an email while we're doing this.
Kelly and I are psychic.
Clearly, I'm the odd man out here, so I'm just going to kind of, okay, yeah. Hey, I have a question.
All right, so let's wind this down. Kelly, recap for us the 5 points that we got into, or 6 points. I think we actually ended up going into a few more. Can you recap what we went in through real quick?
All right. Yeah, I'll give it a shot. You'll have to help me if I miss any. So I think the first one was really the big why. You really write it down. Write it on your computer, the exact reasons why you're doing this, because when you get into a slump, you will need to go back and read it, and it will help you get out of that slump. If you're going to do a part-time job, try to make it something that gets you in front of your target dream clients for your business. You probably make a lot of money as that bartender at night, but if 20-year-old college students are not your target audience, it really isn't helping you as much as it would be if you were in front of your target audience. Don't be afraid to outsource. Figure out what you can use help with. And don't wait until you have enough money. Do it before, because the only way you'll ever get your business moving forward enough is to outsource and get the help you need. Networking. You absolutely need to come out of your shell and start getting to know people. Don't be afraid of it. Redfeathernetworking.com is the website that we started after our big conference experience, and there's a lot of blogs there already. We're going to be rebranding and doing some more things with that. So go through there, read some of the tips that we've posted.
Excellent.
Reframing failure. Failure is not a thing to be ashamed of. Failure is a stepping stone to success. So don't be afraid of that. Let's see, is anything I missed?
Networking, that was it, right?
Financials.
Yeah, outsourcing.
Get a handle on your financials. Know what you need to make. And one more thing on that I think I didn't get to say. Don't gyp yourself. Because, I was talking with a couple of guys and a lovely woman the other day who wanted to start a youth theater program, and they were really big about the dream. The dream is to have this artist community where kids can learn, and they were kind of gypping themselves. They're like, well, we could get by on X amount of money, from this. And I said, look, if you don't take care of yourself, there is no dream. Like, the dream depends on you being able to pay your mortgage and put food on the table. So be realistic about the finances.
I'm glad you brought that up, and I'll make one final point on that note. If I hear another artist tell me that they don't care about money, I'm going to jump off a roof. These are the same people that come to me because they have money problems. Because they don't have enough work, they don't have enough cash to do what they want to do. Listen, if you're not focused on money, and being focused on money doesn't mean that you're doing everything for money. It just means that you're focused. If you're running a business, if you plan on running your freelance or your own business, you need to have focus on the money. Okay? If you don't pay attention to the money won't be there. It's that simple. So there's nothing wrong with it. You need to focus on the money, understand what you need, what your requirements are, and go after it.
Well,
if you say
understand your
money
value
isn't
too.
important to me, it's why you're having money problems, because it's not on your radar.
Mm-hmm.
It's a tool. Money is a tool to achieving the dream.
Absolutely.
Right. And so I think a lot of what you said, Carlos, about the artist is that a lot of people tend to undervalue themselves too. So recognize what you're worth.
Well, I think there's a big sense out there that if you're a creative person, that if you're focusing on the money, that somehow people look at you like, oh, they're only doing it for the money. They're not a real artist. That's such BS. I had a mentor of mine tell me once, money. I actually, they told me this, and I posted it on Facebook, and then I got a bunch of negative feedback on it. But
you must have been doing something right.
What he said was, money solves all problems that not having money creates. And I put that out there because I got it. I understood what he was saying. And I got a bunch of flack on it on Facebook. Oh, money isn't everything. Well, find God. That kind of thing. And that's not what I said. I didn't say money was everything. I said money solves all the problems that not having money creates. So if you don't have money to market and your business can't grow because you can't afford to go take a marketing course, having the money will solve that problem for you. Right? Yeah. If you can't send your kids to private school and you want to because you don't have the money, money will solve that problem for you. If you want to take vacations or if you want to have the freedom, you don't have the money, money will solve that problem. Not that money is everything. Money is, like Kelly said, money is a tool, but you need to be able to focus on it. You need to be able to get a handle on making it important in your life to be able to allow you to do what you want to do.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I get off my soapbox now.
Well, and I have to say this too. There's a big difference between being successful and being a sellout.
Yeah.
Successful does not equal sellout.
Right.
It's about your actions and intention.
Yeah, and if this is something that you're afraid to face or you're shying away from it because you don't know enough about it, then go out and learn about it. Get over that hump, and if you ever have something that is just holding you back, then you have to either face it or you're you're going to crash and burn. So learn about it. Go out and take a course if you need to.
And you know what? Listen, working as a creative, I got to tell you, there's no better feeling when you do something that you love, and because you're passionate about it, and because you're giving the person that's on the receiving end of it, in my case, my clients, something that they need, and I'm getting well compensated for it. There's no better feeling on the planet. I mean, I can give it away for free, but I won't feel the same. Mm-hmm. But when people value me enough to pay me my fees to do a particular job, there's a very high gratification level in it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's great. All right, so let's
with-
wrap up, Carlos,
so
shall
with
we?
that-
We were on our way to wrapping up, and then we just started.
I got off on a tangent as usual, Bob.
I'm
We just
reeling
hang
you
out all
back in,
day.
Carlos. I'm reeling you back in.
I'd blame it on not getting enough sleep last night, and I'm delirious. But the fact is, I'm always this way.
Well, let's get Kelly's information out there for people, so that if they want to come find her, they know where to find her. Kelly, can you tell people where to get in touch with you if they want to reach you?
Yes, absolutely. So if you have a WordPress website or you are wanting to have a WordPress website, come visit me at wpplugincoach.com. I have just put out my first official published guide on how to update WordPress properly so you don't crash your website. So that's available on my website.
It's too late for Carlos.
Hey, WordPress 4.0 is coming out the next few days here, so we'll talk, Carlos.
We should have a disclaimer at the end of the show, Carlos, but we'll get back to that. So I'm sorry, Kelly. Go ahead.
No, that's okay.
Let me just say that if you try going to Drawn by Success right now, all you're going to get is a huge error page.
We like to run things professionally around here.
This interview or any other interview that we've got is right here on Google Plus or on YouTube. Because Drawn by Success is now down.
We're going to post this on Bob Teaches Art today too, so don't worry. You'll be able to find this other places. But
yeah, we'll talk, Carlos. I'll help you get that.
You got a new client. You didn't.
I have a book you can buy.
I'm about to practice exactly what we preach today.
Exactly. There we go. So wpplugincoach.com, and then if you want to hear more from me about entrepreneurship, I'm actually just about to rebrand Boost Interactive Media, and I'm going to talk about this amazing photo shoot I had last week and how you can kind of build your own brand, maybe blogging about that. That is at boostinteractivemedia.com.
Excellent.
Okay. Well, thanks so much
Twitter
for coming
handle
on today. Yeah.
Where can people find you on Twitter?
This is at Kelly Phillips NC for North Carolina, and at WP Plugin Coach.
Excellent. All right, Bob, where can people find you if they so choose to look you up?
Carlos, people can find me at bobostrom.com if you're interested in the illustration stuff. If you want to do some learning, you can find me at bobteachesart.com. And my brand spanking new site that I built in Kelly's class, which is bobmakeslogos.com. So, yeah, it comes.
Well, there you go. You guys can go see Bob's handiwork from taking Kelly's class. That's excellent.
Everything actually works. I can't believe it.
Yeah, then you can go see my handiwork at Drawn by Success.
You need to take Kelly's class.
But I will be hiring her.
Not taking a WordPress class.
So this is a great testimonial for Kelly.
I was going to say.
If smoke comes pouring out of the back of your computer, you'll know that drag Carlos'
site with Kelly. This is the site without Kelly. Okay.
Before or after? Before
and after, yeah. Oh, man. Wow. Unbelievable. All right, guys. It's been real. Again, if anybody wants to get in touch with me, you'll have to email me, carlos@drawnbysuccess.com. I believe my email is still working. However, it's
for now.
For now, yeah. I'm working on that as well.
You might want to jump on this one.
Oh, man. All right, guys. It's been great. Bob, thank you for introducing me to Kelly. Kelly, you've been wonderful. Thank you for coming on so quickly. I mean, we were just started talking about this a couple of weeks ago. And you were gracious enough to join us, and I really appreciate it. Your time and your experience and your knowledge and sharing it with all of us.
I've had a blast. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Kelly.
All right, guys. Till next week, hopefully, on Google Plus, probably.
Listen, I'm going to post them on Bob Teaches Art, so you guys can find them out there. Don't worry. You'll find these things.
Hey, you know what? The best thing you can do is go to my website and sign up for the newsletter.
I'll put a sign up on my site too,
That's not going to work either, is it, Bob?
I got your back, buddy.
I'll throw up some smoke signals soon. And
if you happen to be in South Florida, just go to Carlos's house and you can watch it with him.
All right, guys. Again, Bob, thank you, Kelly. Thanks, and we'll have you again on again soon after your rebranding, and maybe we'll talk a little bit more about different things then. Okay?
Great. Sounds good.
Thanks. All right, guys. Until next week. Bye-bye.
Next time.
Bye.